Well, Michael, thank you very much for coming to all of your flock here, people who are affected by the work you do. And as I was mentioning earlier backstage, when I'm living in Shanghai, probably the brand whose presence is most in my face day in and day out is Dell, which has posters all over the subways on the side of big buildings. So congratulations. At least you got
Thank you.
attention in Shanghai. Let me start with this threshold question. As I mentioned earlier, Dell's saga has been one of phenomenal success, but it's been a complicated saga in the last, let's say, 2 years. What is your interpretation of what's happened at the company in the last 2 years?
Sure. Well, you know, there's no such thing as linear success, and we've experienced some of that recently. But you know, if I look back at the last 10 years, you know, Dell 10 years ago was a $5 billion enterprise. Last year was a $56 billion enterprise. If you study that period fairly carefully, what you find is that in the middle, there was actually a period where we, you know, as many companies were at the time, losing money, having, you know, negative growth, and actually even we laid off some employees. Not a very fun period. That was actually about 5 or 6 years ago. In the last 5 years, the company has doubled in size, from roughly 30 billion to, you know, almost 60 billion run rate now. And in the process, we've become the largest computer systems company in the world for small computers, the ones that cost $100,000 and less, so all the servers and the kind that you mentioned. The business is becoming a lot more global. We have really talked about some of the changing themes in our business in terms of services, solutions, how we can really create a better experience for our users. But it's, you know, I mean, if you step back and look at the kind of current period, we'll still make a few $1 billion this year, so don't cry too much for us. And we'll still earn you know, the largest portion of the profit pool in the small computer systems industry. But it's actually not as well as we've done in the past, because typically in the last 10 years we were earning somewhere between 100 and 150% of the profits of the industry. So there's room for improvement.
So let me ask you a question about this theme of innovation as it connects to what you were just saying and the larger concept we'll be talking about in the conference. The fundamental innovation of Dell when it was getting started was a new business model, a new way for consumers to interact. That's how we bought all of our dozen computers from you over the years. That is partly because of its success. That's a less unique distinguishing feature than it used to be. Other people have figured out some of these tactics. What is the next stage of innovation for you? Is it in products, a new kind of business model? What is the next step for Dell?
I think the connection that we have with customers is still an enormously powerful and valuable resource. It's kind of interesting in this current period to hear some of the dialogue where people are saying, hey, you know, everybody's going to go back to physical stores to buy computers. That could happen. I, for one, believe that in 5 years, more people will go online than go to physical stores. Doesn't mean there won't be physical stores, but you know, if you, again, you kind of step back and you know, you mentioned really the consumer business. Just to put it in perspective, our business is about 85% to businesses, governments, you know, organizations, and about 15% consumer. In the U.S. consumer market, we went from about 6% of the market in 2000 to 29% in 2005, with you know, the vast majority of that, you know, obviously going online, some phone, and then we have a few of these kind of kiosks and little stores that we experiment with. I think the online is going to continue to grow. I think also what we can do with this direct relationship with our customers is build an even stronger, persistent connection through services like Dell Connect. So, you know, we're doing today about 100,000 Dell Connect sessions a week. The way this works is a customer contacts us and they've got a problem with their PC. Hey, I got some spyware, I got some virus, something's not right. And if the customer gives us permission, we can log into their system and solve the problem online. And you know, pretty common to have that in a corporate environment, but for a consumer, this is really an incredible experience. We have, you know, much higher satisfaction, much higher resolution. We're also working on a lot more tools to basically, keep the PC running in a very healthy way. Our business is also changing. I mean, we just signed an agreement with a large global company that everyone would know, a little more than $1 billion. About half the contract is product, the other half is services. So we're actually changing the nature of the things we do for many of our customers, taking on a lot of responsibilities in managing the whole IT environment for them, across the entire life cycle.
You mentioned your efforts to deal with the customer. I want to ask you a personal question which I think industry implications. Your company is very closely identified with you. It has your name is known worldwide. And two of the values that you personally have stood for through the course of your company have been this very great closeness to the customer, and you've been very active in philanthropic efforts and corporate responsibility and all the rest. Therefore, I would imagine two recent challenges to the company have been particularly challenging for you personally. The perceived loss of customer satisfaction and, of course, some of the recent SEC issues. Would you address each of those and how you personally are coping with them and the company as well?
Loads of fun. On the first one, I think actually some of the recent data shows that we've actually made some pretty nice improvements. So, recent surveys from Investors Business Daily, Forrester Research, Michigan Study all show Dell now in a kind of leading among x86 competitors, Windows competitors in terms of service and satisfaction. The simple answer is we're not satisfied with that. We want to get the service and satisfaction levels up sort of beyond kind of previous high levels. And we're investing quite heavily to do that. In terms of the SEC, I'd love to talk about that, but there's a limit to what I'm sort of allowed to discuss. What I can tell you is that we have our audit committee conducting a sort of complete investigation of any of the issues. There's no real news there, from an update that we gave a few weeks ago. If there is any news, we'll be sure and let you know. I think also in a company like Dell, you can look at the cash flow of the company and see that it's very closely tied to the earnings of the company. I understand there are a lot of companies that are engaged in these kind of issues right now, and we're certainly one of them.